everyone, Sabrina here from Scrappy Tales Crafts, and today I'll be showing you the 5 cards that I created with the August 2019 Pink and Main Crafty Courtyard subscription kit. This kit was fruit themed, and the stamp set included some layering stamps that you could use to build dimensional fruit with. So I'm going to show you how I created the fruit for my 5 cards. I decided to stamp and I guess color them and fussy cut them beforehand so that I had a bunch of images to work with while I created my 5 cards. And I did have an idea of how I wanted these cards to look like, so I knew how many of each image I needed. So that is why you see some extras there. I'm going to show you how I created each of the fruits that came in the stamp set, and for all of them I first start off by stamping out their outline with a Memento Tuxedo black ink. And then for this apple I'm going to create a red apple, so I'm going to first ink up the second layer of the apple with my Ladybug Memento Dewdrop ink, and then I'm going to ink up a part of the stamp, usually the right corner, and with a darker ink. So for that red apple I actually used a brown ink, and that's just going to give it a little bit of dimension so it's not so flat. So now I'm going to create a yellow apple. So I first inked up the entire apple with my yellow ink, and then I took my orange ink and added that just to the left hand corner of the stamp, and then I typically go back over that with the yellow to try to blend the two colors together. So now I'm going to create a green apple. I'm going to ink it up first with a light green ink, and then I'm going to ink up part of that apple with a darker green ink, and then I'll go back in with the lighter ink to try to blend the two colors together. I do sometimes stamp each apple twice to try to get a darker color. Sometimes I do it twice to get a more even blend. So that is what you saw there. Now I'm going to work on the stems. I am just using one color, but I'm using that color twice just to get a darker stem. And then for all of the leaves for the fruit, I decided to use bamboo leaves. I do have the lids of my dewdrops on the screen, but I'll also have them listed in my coordinating blog post as well as my video description. You could just use the outline stamps of these fruits and color them in with whatever coloring medium you have, but I decided to use the stamp layering stamps to see what that would look like, and I'm pretty happy with how these fruit turned out, and I kind of like that I didn't have to color them, and they were pretty quick to assemble. So now I'm going to work on this lemon here, so I'm going to ink it up with yellow and then just add a little bit of orange off to the corner, and I do like that that just gives a little bit of dimension. Okay, so now I'm going to ink up the stem and the leaf with my bamboo leaves. And then I'm going to work on the citrus slice, and this could be a lime, an orange, or a lemon. So I'm going to create a lime and a lemon here. So here is the lime. I'm going to ink that up twice with my bamboo leaves, and for the lemon I'm going to ink it up with my yellow and my orange ink. Just to make it slightly darker than the inside, which I'm going to stamp with a lighter green ink and a lighter yellow ink. And there is actually a third layer to that, and I didn't realize that till later, so you'll see I'll come back to those 2 citrus slices later on. But first I'm going to work on the watermelon. I decided to color the watermelon portion with a pink ink, and then on the bottom of it I added a little bit of red, again to add some dimension. And I was running a little dry on this pink ink, so I did ink it up a few times. And now I'm going to work on the green portion of the watermelon, so I'm going to ink it up with a light green ink, and then on the 2 top corners I'll add a little bit of a darker green ink. And now I'm going to work on the strawberry. I think again I use a pink and red ink for the strawberry. And I really do love these dewdrops. They're small, so you can put them in like one little bin and not have to worry about them. And I like that they're small because I don't use a lot of colored inks, but I like having them on hand for stamp sets like these. And I've had some of my dewdrops for 2 or 3 years, so they last surprisingly long. You can see I just added the third layer for those citrus slices. And now I can start working on card number 1. Here you can see I went ahead and fussy cut all of the fruit, and I die cut a whole bunch of the tags that came in the die set. And I die cut them from various colored cardstock because I wasn't sure which colors I wanted to use. I just chose some bright summery colors that coordinated with the pattern papers. So now I can start card 1. I'm going to stamp Squeeze the Day onto this red die cut tag. And then I'm taking a rectangle frame that I created with 2 of my stitched rectangle dies, and I'm going to add some foam tape behind the frame just to give it some dimension. And I'm going to adhere that frame onto my 100-pound black card base. And then I die cut a smaller stitched rectangle that I want to place inside. And I'm going to adhere that flat using my art glitter glue. And now I'm going to take my sentiment and a few of the fruit that I stamped, colored, and cut out earlier, and just arrange them around the card to frame in my sentiment. So I think I use all the fruit except for the apple. Okay, so I like that arrangement. I'm going to grab some more foam tape and my art glitter glue to attach all of these fruit. For the orange, I adhered part of it with art glitter glue where it overlapped the frame, and then I added some foam tape to the areas that were not attached to the dimensional frame. I'm also going to pop up my sentiment, and then I'm going to add some foam tape and some art glitter glue to this lemon slice. I do move this one around a bit since I was having trouble trying to figure out where to put that watermelon. But I like this placement. I'm going to adhere the watermelon with my art glitter glue. And it was at this point I felt that the card was still plain, so I stamped and die cut this hello. And this hello actually comes from the free gift that you get once you subscribe to a Pink and Main card kit. And I added some bamboo leaves underneath the hello just to give it sort of like a gradient. And I'm going to adhere the hello onto that tag, and then I'll just add some foam tape behind that and attach both my sentiment and the hello in the middle of my card. And I also took some hearts that were also a part of the die set, and I'm going to glue those around my sentiment, again trying to frame them in so that the person's eyes will go towards that sentiment. And then I just added some Wink of Stella to the hello and also my fruit. And I think I also added an orange gem and a yellow gem to the center of my citrus slices. And that will complete card number 1. This was pretty quick to assemble, and I really like that plaid pattern paper. For card 2, I'm going to do some ink blending, so I'm taking my Wild Honey Distress Oxide ink and a Life Changing brush by Picket Fence Studios, and I'm going to add some color to this white panel. I'm concentrating most of the ink towards the right side and letting it fade off into the white. I'm also going to add some Twisted Citron to the bottom of this panel. And this panel is 110-pound white Neenah cardstock that I cut to 4 by 5 1/4 inches. I really do like using this cardstock for ink blending since it's such a bright white. Okay, so now I'm going to take these scallop circles that came in the die set and a few of my lemon slices, and I'm going to layer the lemons on top of the scallop circles to create some whimsical flowers. So I'm going to give these flowers some stems. I created these stems from some lime green cardstock. I just cut them down into strips. Some of the stems are wider than others, and I did that purposely just to add some whimsy. I decided to give each of my lemon slices a gem in the center. So I am using the gems that came in the kit to add those in. I did add some art glitter glue just to make sure that those gems don't fall off. And then I'm taking this ring stamp that came in the stamp set. It's actually one of the layers for the citrus stamp, but this time I'm just using it as a ring to add some interest to my background, and I am inking it up with the Twisted Citron ink and a yellow Memento ink. And I'm just randomly stamping these rings all around the background. I am stamping some of them in the second generation as they fade off into the white background. And I'm really happy that I added these rings. I think it makes the card look abstract. And this card is definitely my favorite. I am really loving yellow lately, and this card is just so eye-catching and it photographed beautifully, so this one is definitely my favorite. I decided to pop up my lemon slices, so I will just add some foam tape behind those and pop them up onto their scallop circles. And now I'm going to attach their stems. I'm just adding art glitter glue to the tops of the stems, and I'll just adhere those behind the flowers. And then I'm going to mess around with these flowers until I find a placement that I like. And I like how that looks, so I will grab my art glitter glue and add some glue behind the flowers, and then I'll just attach them to this panel. And then I felt like these flowers look kind of like lollipops, so I want them to look more like flowers. So I'm going to take the leaf stamp that came in the stamp set. This is actually the leaf for the apple. And I'm going to ink it up with some Twisted Citron ink and a little bit of the Bamboo Leaves Memento ink to help those leaves stand out against those rings in the background. And the combination of the Twisted Citron and the bamboo leaves creates a green that looks almost exactly like the cardstock I used for the stems, so I'm really happy with how that turned out. So now I'm going to figure out my sentiment. I wanted to use the Hello stamp set again, and this does come with, it's a freebie if you subscribe to the Pink and Main card kit. So I'm going to ink up this Hello with the orange and yellow ink just to create a gradient. And luckily I was able to stamp that out twice. It was easy to line back up. And then I'm going to stamp a happy so that the sentiment reads a happy hello. The a happy, you can see I stamp it onto the white cardstock, but I actually end up white heat embossing it onto some black cardstock instead. I just felt like the white didn't stand out enough. And I also wanted to add the outline hello on this hello die cut, so I went ahead and did that. Here you can see I white heat embossed the happy sentiment. And now I'm just trying to figure out how I want to glue this down. I decided to adhere the A happy with my art glitter glue, and then I'm going to pop up hello with my foam tape. And that will complete the panel. So I did create my card base from the orange cardstock that came in the kit. I'm going to attach some ATG tape to the back of this panel and adhere it onto my card base. And that will complete card number 2. I really love this one. Here's a close-up. Okay, card 3 isn't actually a card. I decided to create tags with the dies that came in the kit. So on one side of the die cut, I'm going to stamp a sentiment, and then on the other side, I'm going to glue down the coordinating fruit that goes with that sentiment. So for this tag, I stamped the berry best on one side, and then on the other side, I'm going to glue the strawberry. I am going around the edges of the strawberry with a black marker just to clean up the edges. And I did stamp the berry best with some pink ink. I did die cut all of these tags out of various colored cardstocks and pattern papers. And the fruit all fit very nicely inside these tags. Alright, so that's how that looks. So now I'm going to work on the watermelon. So I'm going to stamp one in a melon with my Memento Tuxedo black ink, and then I'll glue the watermelon slice on the opposite side. And then for this lemon, I'm going to stamp Squeeze the Day with some Memento Tuxedo black ink, and then I'll flip it around and glue down my lemon. I am going around the edges with a black marker. Some of them I forget to add the black marker, but it's not a huge deal. Alright, so now I'm going to work on the citrus slices. So for this orange scallop, I'm going to stamp Squeeze the Day on the back, and then on the front I will glue down an orange slice. For this yellow tag, I'm going to stamp Squeeze the Day with a dark yellow ink, and then glue down a lemon slice in the front. For this one, I'm going to stamp Squeeze the Day with a dark green ink, flip it around, and adhere my lime slice. And I really liked how the gems looked on my other two cards in the centers of my citrus slices, so I'm going to go ahead and add gems to these ones. Again, using some art glitter glue to make sure that those gems don't pop off. And that's how all the tags look. So now I'm going to work on the strings. So I'm going to punch a hole on the top of each of my tags using a hole punch. And I think the only fruit that I didn't use was the apple, because I felt that the apple didn't fit well with any of these die cuts. So now I'm going to take some of the twine that came in the kit, and I'm also going to thread through a tassel. And then I'll just add the twine to the hole of the tag. And I don't know what knot I'm using here, but I'm sure you guys can see what I'm doing. But I think the tassel really looks cute. And I wasn't sure what I would do with them, but I thought they fit really nicely with these tags. So that's the strawberry one. For the lemon, I decided to use the pink and white twine. I'll thread through my tassel, and then I'll thread both ends of the thread through the hole on my tag, and then go back through the hole that I created to create the knot. I hope I make sense. For the lime tag, I wanted to use some green and white twine, so I used some from my stash. Again, I did add a tassel. And these turned out so cute. I plan on using them for the packaging on my orders. I like to package my cards really cute with tissue paper, and I think I'll just tie these around the cards. But these tags would be great for summer gifts. And I thought it would be fun to do something different than a card, so these little tags were perfect to go with the die cuts that came in the kit. So here is how the lemon turned out. For the watermelon, I wanted to use some red and white twine, so I took that from my stash, and my red and white twine is a lot thicker than the twine that comes in the kit, so I made my hole a little bit bigger using my hole punch. Here's how the watermelon tag turned out. This one's one of my favorites because I love the polka dot pattern paper that I used. And then my last one is my little orange slice, and that's how that tag turned out. So here I'm going to show you how all the tags look. I think they're super cute with the tassels attached. And then once you flip them over, you can read the coordinating sentiment that goes with the fruit in the front. So these are adorable. Here's a close-up, and here's how they look on the back. Okay, for card 4, I'm going to start off by stamping this mason jar from a Jelly Bean Soup stamp set. I'm going to ink it up with my Memento Tuxedo black ink. And I'm also going to ink up the coordinating lid with my gray flannel Memento Dewdrop ink. And then I'm also going to stamp out the straw with some orange ink. And then I'll just fussy cut all of that out with my scissors. You can see that my mason jar has some ink in the center of it. That didn't bother me because I knew I was going to be cutting out the center, because I want this mason jar to be a shaker. So here you can see I'm puncturing a hole in the center of the mason jar with my scissors, and then I'm just going to cut along the edges of the mason jar to cut out the center. I am leaving some space along the edges, and that's where I'm going to add my foam tape behind. I know that Lawn Fawn has a mason jar shaker add-on, So you can use that and you don't have to use your scissors, but I really wanted to use this particular mason jar, so I just used my scissors to create my own shaker. Now I'm going around the edges with a black marker. And if I were to do this again, I would wait until I add my Copic marker because the black ink did spread a little bit. I didn't worry about it too much because I knew my lemons would cover some of this mason jar up. So I just deliberately placed my lemons on the areas where some ink smudged. I am coloring this mason jar with 2 shades of blue Copic markers. And now I'm going to add my acetate, but I felt that the edges of my mason jar were too wide, so I'm just going to trim off a little bit more to make those edges more narrow. And now I'm going to attach my acetate with some art glitter glue, trim off the excess, and then I decided to pop up the lid of my mason jar with some foam tape. And then I'm going to work on the panel where I'm going to place my mason jar. So I cut down some of this yellow pattern paper that came in the kit, and then I adhered it onto a white rectangle that was slightly larger. And I will have all of the measurements on my coordinating blog post in case you're interested. And now I'm going to start laying out my lemons. I did cut one of the lemon slices in half just to add some interest. And then I'm going to stamp out my sentiment. I chose Squeeze the Day. I'm going to white heat emboss it onto this black die cut circle. And I will place this circle in the center of my mason jar. Okay, so I'll just place that in the center, and now I can start working on my shaker. So I'm going to double up my foam tape behind this mason jar. I took off the backing of this foam tape because I can easily manipulate it once the backing is off. And I decided to use both sequins that came in the kit, the yellow sequins and the sequins that had fruit on them. I decided to just use the orange and yellow fruit that came in the fruit pack, and then for the yellow sequins I just poured in a bunch. And then I will just adhere my mason jar right on top. And that will complete the shaker. I think that looks super cute. And now I can start to add in the lemons around my jar. So I am adhering them with art glitter glue, and then I'll add just a little bit of foam tape to the areas where it hangs off of the mason jar. Here I'm going to add my straw. I did trim it down, and then I'll just add that to the top of the mason jar. And for this lemon, I am going to pop it up and tuck it underneath the lid. I had this little quarter slice that I thought about using, but instead I'm going to adhere it to the top of the jar so that it looks like it's connecting to that half slice. And I decided to leave it at that. So now I'm going to attach it to my card base. I took some more pattern paper that came in the kit, and I'm going to adhere it onto some white cardstock. I just cut this down to a strip. And then I'm going to adhere it onto this 4 by 5 1/4 inch panel that I also created from the pattern paper that came in the paper pad. I'll trim off the excess and then add my little mason jar. And then I'm going to flip this whole panel around and attach that to my 110-pound white Nina card base. And that will complete card number 4. This one's really cute. Again, I love yellow. I'm just very drawn to that color now. Here's a close-up. So the only fruit that I hadn't used yet was the apple. So I wanted to create its own card. So I'm going to take some strips of white cardstock and I'm going to add some Distress Oxide ink to each strip. For this strip, I decided to ink it up with some Candied Apple Distress Oxide ink. I also added some droplets to give it some interest. For this panel, I'm going to ink it up with my Squeeze Lemonade Distress ink. I am using my life-changing brushes to add the color to these white panels here. And then for this last strip, I'm going to ink it up with some Twisted Citron ink. And again, I'm just going to use my spray bottle to add some water splatters in the background. I'm using a paper towel to blot that up. And here are all of my strips, and I wanted to add the colored apples to each one. For these apples, I did leave a white border around them just so that they stood out against the red and yellow and green strips. I first started by adhering the 2 apples on the side, and that helped me to adhere the middle one. And then for the yellow row, I'm going to stamp one of the apples with this sentiment that says "Apple of my eye." It stamps perfectly in the center of the apple. And I just inked that up with some VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and since it is a pretty sticky ink and it takes a long time to dry, I decided to just clear heat emboss it. So now I can adhere my yellow apples to the yellow strip. Again, I start with the 2 apples on the side and then I adhere the middle one. And then I'll just adhere my green apples. And I think I like the green ones the best. Okay, so that's how that looks. So now I'm going to take my card base and I'm just going to adhere these strips directly onto it. I decided to pop each one up with some foam tape. This is U-line foam tape. It's pretty cheap. I think I paid like $8 for a roll, but it is very sticky. So once it's down, it's down. I did have to peel up the green strip, which you'll see later on, but luckily I didn't tear my card base. So I'm going to start with the 2 top rows, I think. Yes. I'm going to attach my red strip first. And then I'll attach the yellow strip in the center. And this was at the point where I realized that green strip was slightly crooked. So I will peel that off as slowly as I can to try to avoid ripping the paper. And then I will try to reattach it straight. And it worked. Yay. So I'm going to use some of the gems that came in the kit, and I'm just going to add them to the designated colored area. So the green gems went with the green apples, the yellow with the yellow, and the red with the red apples. So here is the completed card. This was pretty quick to put together, and I'm pretty happy with how this one looks. Alright, so now I'm going to show you all 5 cards that I created with the August 2019 Pink and Main card kit. Please let me know which card was your favorite. I think all of them are so colorful and they were a lot of fun to create, and I think it was a great way to finish off the summer card making and move on to fall. Here are the tags that I created. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you haven't yet already, please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when I post a new video. So thanks again for watching. Bye!